Thank you for joining us. Today is Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. I'm Brittany Noble, and you are watching The Breakdown. Here's what's coming up today. Bishop William Barber is leading a national multi-day march. That starts today. People will assemble and travel from Wilson to Raleigh, North Carolina. Black Star Network's correspondent Wesley Lowery is in North Carolina. He will have full coverage for us today. Plus, a Black woman is shot 6 times in Detroit, and now she's telling the police department and the officer that shot her to pay up. And a national Black farming leader says he was excluded from key White House talks, raising new questions about whether Black farmers are still shut out of federal support. And the Center for Black Health and Equity in North Carolina is working to eliminate disparities by creating systems that benefit Black people and communities through collaborative partnerships. We have a full show for you coming up today. The Breakdown starts right now. Well, a Black Detroit woman who was shot 6 times by a police officer during a traffic stop is fighting back in federal court. Tracy Allen is suing the city and Zachary Melvin. That is for $25 million. According to the lawsuit filed last Wednesday, the incident happened in October of 2025 when officers pulled Allen over on 8 Mile Road for speeding excessively, tinted windows, and an obscured license plate. Allen says she provided her driver's license and registration, but also asked for the officer's supervisor and called 911, which did not arrive on the scene. She says during the altercation, police sprayed her with pepper spray as she attempted to drive away. That is when Officer Melvin fired shots and ordered her to get out of her vehicle. Here's what Allen's attorney, Maurice Davis, talking about the case, and Allen talking about the day she thought she would die at the hands of police.
A routine traffic stop about a plate violation or a tint or speeding, whatever the officer used to justify pulling my client over, he was not justified in shooting her.
He began to try to argue with me. We went back and forth, and I asked for a supervisor several times. He didn't give it to me, so I dialed 911 and told the operator that I feared for my life and asked her to stay on the phone with me. He asked me to get out the car twice. I shook my head no. That's when he began to shoot my truck up. As he shot my truck up, I pulled off. I didn't know I was hit until I got to the light. After I got to the light, I kept going until I made it to the police station and told them that he shot me.
The lawsuit states that Allen will need long-term medical care. The Detroit police chief says that the department has suspended the officer without pay, and Melvin has been on the force for nearly 2 years. Well, in New York, the Black New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado announced on Tuesday that he is ending his campaign for governor, saying he has concluded that there is simply no viable path forward. The 49-year-old, a former 2-term member of Congress, launched his bid last June, a rare move for a sitting lieutenant governor, challenging an incumbent governor. But at the New York State Democratic Convention last week, Delgado failed to meet the required threshold to secure an automatic spot on the primary ballot. His withdrawal comes just days after New York City Mayor endorsed Delgado's boss, Governor Kathy Hochul, as she runs for re-election. And a court ruling is forcing President Donald Trump's administration to restore Consumer Financial Protection Bureau funding. Over the past year, Trump took aggressive steps to weaken this organization, but the federal agency was created to protect everyday Americans from predatory banks, lenders, and financial scams. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is speaking out about this.
The rent is too damn high. The cost of groceries is too damn high. The big banks are all too eager to nickel and dime hardworking people. And you know what has been a saving grace for families trying to hold on to a buck? That little government agency called the Consumer, emphasis on Consumer, Financial Protection Bureau.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, you may have never heard of them, but they've been working hard for you. The the people for a decade. They're a small but mighty agency that got banks to cap overdraft fees. They take on scammers that are after our elders' money. They stop medical debt from dinging your credit report. They go after for-profit colleges. They are watchdogs fighting for the people. So no wonder Donald Trump has attacked them again and again. He doesn't want watchdogs protecting the people. He wants predators and bad actors to take people for a ride. Meanwhile, the CFPB put $21 billion, that's a B, with $1 billion back in people's pockets. The good policies from the CFPB have been make or break for folks' ability to survive financially in the midst of recessions, pandemics, and much more. But this agency has been dismantled to the core. Now, every day, the CFPB is sidelined. Every day it is a day when the financial system is rigged to take more from families and line the pockets of the wealthiest few. It is long past time that President Trump and CFPB Director Vaught end their attacks on the CFPB and let the agency and its dedicated staff get back to the work to fight on behalf of borrowers, not billionaires.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Welcome back. The Labor Department released its newest jobs report this morning. Officials say employers added 130,000 jobs in January, and the unemployment rate fell to 4.3%. Today, we have Morgan Harper, the Director of Policy and Advocacy for the American Economic Liberties Project, joining us today to break it all down. Morgan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us what the numbers say for Black unemployment.
Well, we're still, getting all into all the specifics. But I think first there's a couple of things I would note. One, hooray, we have a jobs report and have data that's coming out, because as we've seen over the last couple of months, that hasn't been a guarantee with this administration. And we need to get past the main headline. We've already heard from the administration and Trump that this is the most amazing jobs report ever. Look how many jobs we're creating. The economy is booming. But I want to break that down a little bit. And the first thing is, yes, in January, this data is showing that over 130,000 jobs were created. That is notable because, as we've talked about for the last few months, the economy has been producing very few jobs, to the tune of just like a few tens of thousands of jobs. So that number on its own can seem impressive. But that's only relative to the very low numbers that have been coming over the last few months throughout 2025, really. And then we have to look at what kinds of jobs, because, as we've talked a lot about on the show, that there's been this promise of bringing manufacturing back to the US. But again, in these jobs numbers, we're seeing this majority of the jobs being created are in the healthcare industry. That is not an industry that is resting on great innovation. That's an industry that is built around taking care of us when we're sick. And so, it's not really lining up with the administration's stated goal for a lot of their economic policy that has been bringing a lot of pain in terms of affordability and for small businesses. And that's something to continue to watch. That being said, there are a few gains also in the construction industry. We haven't seen that for the past few months, so that's notable and kind of positive. But the other thing that I would draw attention to is we're seeing more people who are giving up on finding a job. They don't have a job, and so they, and the numbers are showing that they're just not continuing to engage with the workforce. That's problematic. And then the long-term unemployment rate overall aggregate is staying pretty high. The thing that's interesting is, and another point that the administration is noting, of course, is that unemployment is still pretty low and went down a little bit just in the, that main number. But then the hiring numbers have declined quite a bit. And so what do we make of that? It does kind of seem there then that folks that maybe have a job already aren't leaving, but that we aren't seeing a lot of people that are looking to absorb new workers. And so, who is this problematic for? I mean, it's problematic for people who are trying to find a job. Like we said, a lot of folks are just giving up. And then as we look at younger people, recent college grads, folks that are entering the workforce, it might be increasingly harder to actually get placed into a job that is secure. So that's something that we need, to continue to watch. So overall, we're going to hear a lot of blustering from the administration about this is incredible. It's all relative. And January is a weird month. We've had these hiccups with the data overall. We've got the holidays and the adjustments that happen for holiday. So I think we all need to be, somewhat measured in what we're hearing about what exactly these numbers mean.
So I see in construction, there were 33,000 jobs that were added, but there were also sectors that lost jobs in January, including transportation and warehousing, which lost about 11,000 jobs. What else are you noticing about this report?
Yeah, so, that's interesting. I mean, it's always hard to pinpoint what exactly is driving some of these decreases. I think in transportation and warehousing, that can sometimes be tied to different technological changes that are happening, and maybe just not the need for as much of workers, also just less consumer demand, and then they don't need to be packaging as much and shipping and creating as much there. The other thing that's notable where we saw a decline is in federal workers. And this is one we've seen a lot since this second Trump administration and the attacks on the federal workforce. So, not surprising, but continues to have negative effects that are rippling throughout people's lives and communities as the federal government becomes less of a reliable employer. So, again, it's overall, I would say, a very mixed economic picture and a lot of uncertainty. And so we have to continue to monitor what data we're seeing, what in a variety of sources of data, since we have some uncertainty always about what exactly this administration is doing and saying with regard to the numbers.
So temporary help services added about 9,000 jobs. Does this signal anything significant for you?
Well, that's another one where, good, always good to have more people that are working and earning money. But, temporary health services, that's not something that you're building an economy around. That's going to be like a source of a lot of future growth. And so, not at all to diminish any job that folks are able to get. That's important. We all need to make money and be able to support ourselves. But when we're looking at an economic strategy for the future, and the promises that have come out of this administration in terms of what type of economy that they claim their policies are supporting, these numbers don't really match that. Temporary health services are very different from manufacturing jobs that are in key industries or anything like that. So when we add up that that's an area of growth, that again healthcare is an area of growth, that's all more in the service sector. And those are not the types of jobs that are necessarily showing that we're preparing ourselves as a country to be competitive with places like, China, for example, where there's been a lot of attention on just how much their manufacturing sector has grown.
Morgan, anything you really want our audience to know today?
No, just, continue to dig into a bit of the details, be skeptical about the headlines. And that's why it's so great to have platforms like this where we can break things down a little bit more and make sure folks have the full picture.
All right. Morgan Harper, thank you so much for joining us today on The Breakdown. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory, attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Welcome back to The Breakdown. Thousands of people are reported missing every year in the United States. And while not every case will get widespread media attention, the coverage of white and minority victims is far from proportionate. Today, we're shining a light on a young boy named Bryson Wilson. He was last seen on May 29, 2025, about 11:45 p.m. near the 100 block of Scarlet Oaks Court in Dothan, Alabama. West was recently diagnosed with a kidney disorder and may be in need of medical assistance. He was last seen wearing a black hoodie, black pants, and gray Crocs. If you've seen him or if you have any information, please call police at 334-793-0215. Well, national headlines erupted after John Boyd Jr., the president of the National Black Farmers Association, revealed that he was not invited to the White House for key conversations involving farmers and agriculture, despite being one of the most visible advocates for Black farmers in the country. And that exclusion is raising a bigger question. Just how can the federal government claim it cares about rural America while still ignoring the Black farmers who have been fighting for fairness for generations? Joining me now is John Boyd Jr. He is the president of the National Black Farmers Association. Mr. Boyd, we want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us what happened with the White House invite.
Well, basically, the farming community is a very small community. And when I heard that the White House was having an all-farmer meeting, I immediately called the agriculture staff at the White House and tried to be a part of that conversation. And during numerous conversations, the White House indicated that one, they were moving away from the Black farmer issue. They were moving away from small farmer issue, and they were focusing on large-scale white farmers. And they were focusing on corporate farmers, and that they were moving away from DEI. And my pushback here is there's no DEI on my farm. I invite anybody to come here and show me what DEI looks like on the farm. My beef cattle eat the same amount of hay as white farmers. My tractor burns the same amount of diesel fuel as white farmers. And this administration keeps showing its ugly head on race. In that meeting, and they did have the meeting on December 9th. And I don't know why the story broke late, because I've been out here, saying exactly what they've been saying, but nobody picked it up. And MSNBC done an interview, and the story broke. But I've been out here saying exactly what they've been telling me the whole time. This administration chose to bring in white farmers from South Africa, give them a fast path to citizenship, a homestead, and monies. White farmers, and they like to use the term Africans, but it's white farmers, and they're doing it solely by race. But then they say in this country that they're not racist. This administration says they're not racist, but they didn't have one Black farmer at the table at the all-white farmers meeting. They didn't have one Black person in the audience at the all-white farmers meeting. And I'm still waiting for a member of the press to ask them about this. So here we've been totally excluded. And the administration said that they were moving away from the Black farm issue, and they may revisit it. I want people to understand this, watching this, and that they may revisit it in a couple of years. So what are we supposed to do for a couple of years? Just wait for something to happen here? We have to hold this administration accountable. We have to hold this president accountable. As soon as that story broke, the next day, the president tweeted some ugly imagery of the Obamas, the deplorable stuff. And then, lately, the governor for Maryland, he disinvited them. There's a historical pattern here that this administration is doing. They don't want Black people at the table, and they're being open about it. And we have to start pushing back. And, the Black community has to start pushing back in a real big way, because we have to hold this administration accountable. White farmers voted for this president 3 times. They voted for this president 3 times. They supported him. And all these blogs that keep saying, well, did Boyd vote for him? I did not vote for this president. I supported Harris. I endorsed Harris, and I campaigned for Harris and put it all out on social media. And that's what they tried to do. The fact of the matter is, we're on at the table. We're on a part of the discussion, And this administration doesn't want black farmers. So I'm out here saying we need to start wanting ourselves and start banding together and start supporting each other as black leaders in this country.
And Mr. Boyd, what message does it send when the leading voice for black farmers is not in the room?
Well, it shows where this administration is. And I think these reporters that are watching this, ask the White House about this and ask them about Stephen Miller and the history that Stephen Miller's had with me and our black farmers in this country. When we won the $5 billion, Stephen Miller went out and got white farmers and started suing us in federal court to block the aid to black farmers. And they were able to do that. And just as I started winning in federal court, they came back and repealed it. The Biden administration did. So there's a long track record with Stephen Miller going back to following me around the hill 20 years ago when he was a White House staffer. So he crafted this reverse discrimination mess, and he's implementing it now in the White House today. And this should be a message to black people in this midterm coming election. Don't look at the other side, vote the other side, because you already see what this administration is doing. But, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give in. And I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep pressing forward. And, I'm putting my faith in God here, And thank God for this network that has given me a platform to come out and tell the truth about what happened. So this administration did it. And that's why you're not hearing them saying anything about it. They know they've done this, and they keep doing it every day. And the issue with the governor from Maryland is another example that this administration does not want black people that look like me at the table. And it's deplorable.
Disinviting the governor to the White House.
Yes.
I want to know, paint a picture for us. How difficult is it to be a black farmer right now in America? What are you dealing with?
We're dealing with outside corporate America that doesn't want us. John Deere, companies like that are slow to service my equipment and other black farmers. And they say it's not racist. They're saying the same thing this administration does. Oh, we have to service large-scale farmers and keep them going. They always use that, and it's a very difficult time in this country. This administration, this president has made it worse for farmers. And meanwhile, they're trying to take out, black farmers in this country. But I'm going to announce on your show, it's going to be more white farmers to lose their farms than black farmers this time. The president promised, matter of fact, he went down to Iowa and said, there's $12 billion I just paid to our farmers. The farmers haven't gotten a dime of the $12 billion. I'm one of those farmers. It hasn't gotten it, and it went from January to February. He went down to 15 billion, from 15 billion down to 12. We haven't got the money. This president lies, and the media allows him to get away with it. He gave $40 billion to Argentina instead of helping America's farmers. And then guess what? He went out just this week and gave more aid to Argentina by saying we're going to purchase beef from Argentina. He doesn't care. And we're going to have to start holding them accountable. This is a bad time in history for black farmers. But guess what? The good Lord has the last say. And, I put all my faith right there. But I'm going to keep pressing forward and keep doing what we're supposed to do. But I would like to see other black leaders, and I heard him speak up very, very well for the governor of Maryland and what happened there. But I haven't seen the press releases supporting, this organization, National Black Farmers Association. We would like to see those letters of support come up, and those posts on other black leaders' websites and social media. What they did is deplorable. They didn't have me at the table because I was black people. And if you can't see that, something's wrong with you.
I have one more question for you, Mr. Boyd. If given the opportunity, what would you have said directly to President Trump if you were at the White House?
They got to open up federal programs for black farmers. There's no reason to repeal all of the years' progress that people like myself and others made all those changes at USTA to get those positions there, the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, all of the diversity positions, all that stuff. All those people were out the first day. And I wanted to tell them that that was the wrong way to take agriculture in this country, and that we need a seat at the table. If he says, he's not racist, he says he does. He says he's not racist. He makes these statements that black people love him. I mean, you guys heard him say all this stuff. but we're not at the table. And that's something I want to say directly to this president. You can't just say you ain't racist. You got to show the American people you ain't racist. And if you ain't racist, then why not have the people at the table, even though they may not agree with you, have them at the table anyway. And that's the problem with this president. Anyone who speaks out against him, they immediately go after them. They want to investigate him and all this stuff. So what? They don't agree. But meet somewhere center of the road and do what's right for the American people. This country can't be a one-party country. I'm only going to meet with Republicans and people who agree with me. That's not what the other predecessors did. And he keeps comparing himself to Obama. That's certainly something that President Obama never done. He had a governor's meeting there, and they had everybody at the table, Republicans and Democrats. And this president simply wants to have people who look like him, white men at the table, and he don't want black men at the table.
John Boyd Jr., thank you so much for joining us here on The Breakdown, the president of the National Black Farmers Association. We appreciate you for telling us what's really going on.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me.
Well, coming up, a major march is underway in North Carolina as Bishop William J. Barber II leads a statewide push for a moral and political awakening. Walking from Wilson to Raleigh, Black Star Network's Wesley Lowery is on the ground with the Love Forward Together movement. He'll join us coming up after the breaks. Plus, have you come across a news story that deserves national attention? We want to hear from you. Please submit your questions to us on our website, blackstarnetwork.com. We'll be right back.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Well, today marks the first day that many people will gather in Wilson, North Carolina to march across the state to Raleigh with Bishop William J. Barber II. That's the founding director of the Center for Public Theology and Public Policy at Yale Divinity School. Bishop Barber is calling the nation to a moral and political awakening. Black Star Network's Wesley Lowery is there for the Love Forward Together march. Wesley, set the scene for us. Wesley, tell us, all eyes are on North Carolina right now. Why?
Of course. Well, we are here. We're about 5 miles west of Wilson, North Carolina, marching towards Raleigh. William Barber is leading a march. Has about a few hundred people right now, but we're imagining it's going to pick up steam as it moves its way west across North Carolina today, tomorrow, Friday, and ultimately resulting in a rally in Raleigh, North Carolina, at the State House. Now, we are here in part because North Carolina has been one of the states targeted by the Trump administration for redistricting. Now, normally, redistricting, the drawing of congressional lines, happens every 10 years linked to the census, but President Trump has aggressively pushed Republican state legislatures to redraw the lines in order to try to hold on to the narrow Republican margin control he has in the House of Representatives. And so we've seen that here in North Carolina, where Representative Don D held the first for years in what has been an historic Black district. And so Reverend Barber, one of the leading civil rights officials, not just here in North Carolina, but across the state, known nationally for his Moral Mondays movement in the 20-aughts, and a real voice of clarity, has called for a series of events and mobilizations in order to rally support ahead of this November's midterm elections. I know we've got some audio from Reverend Barber where he talked earlier today about why he was assembling people here. I don't know if you guys want to shoot over to that.
Yeah, but yes, because un-American authoritarianism has jumped out. But I want to remind us we're focused on love and loving forward together. Yes, it's about voting, but it's also about the vision. What is it that we want? What is it that you love? What is it that you'll fight for? That is why we are Black, we are white, we are indigenous, we are poor, we are working, we are wealthy with a conscience, we're young, we're old, we're straight, we're gay, we're from the east, we're from the west, we're from the north, we're from the south. But we are most of all lovers of justice and truth and lovers of humanity, and we are not going anywhere. We're going to stand together. It's time. We've heard enough hate. We've heard enough meanness. You heard Dr. Owens Barber say that. We've heard it enough. Now is the time for love to speak like never before. I want you to grab in your mind right now, what is it that you will fight for regardless of who's in office? This is not a Democratic march or a Republican march or walk. What is it that you love and that you will battle for no matter what? Get it in your mind. What is it? Come on up, y'all. Those that are here. It's time for those who love humanity to turn it up and turn it up on. It's time for those who love truth-telling to turn it up and turn it on. It's time for those who love education and healthcare, who love a society where you don't have to be worried about people in our name claiming to be officers of the law shooting our people down in the street. It's time for love to turn it up and to turn it on. Am I right about it?
So Wesley, you said that there's a few hundred people that are there organizing. Could you tell us a little bit about the people that you've had conversations with?
Hi, Brittany. You got me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. As you know, it's all live. We're here in the Romobile. Just a few feet behind was probably a few hundred marchers, demonstrators. It's a mixture of all types of folks. We've got clergy members, we've got members of labor unions, we've got folks who've been politically involved, some including who were around for the march held by Coretta Scott King back in 1968 following the death of Martin Luther King Jr. And so, again, what we're seeing here is the beginning of a mobilization of a cross-racial, multicultural set of folks hoping to rally and to gain momentum in favor of multiracial democracy, in favor of a push against what we've seen in some of the fascist and authoritarian actions by the Trump administration.
You know, Bishop Barber argues that what we're witnessing, the deaths of voter rights, the deaths caused by denied health care, deaths caused by the abuse of state power. Talk to us about some of these authoritarian policies and the cost for our community.
Of course. Well, what we've seen here in North Carolina, as well as across the country, is we've seen significant rollbacks of social services. We've seen, under the pretense of the attacks on so-called DEI, we've seen attacks on the institutions, whether it be attacks on HBCUs, whether it be attacks on access to health care and other benefits programs. And so what we know, again, we're here in North Carolina's 1st congressional district, which is one of the poorest congressional districts in the country, and it's Black. It's where Black Americans live, in districts like this across the country. And these are the districts where two different things are true, where they receive the disproportionate impact of the types of cuts and aggression from the Trump administration, and also where so often voters are undermobilized, where Black, brown, low-income people, even who are registered to vote, end up not showing up at the polls. And so we've heard Roland talk about this. We've seen Reverend Barber talk about this, and I'm sure we're going to hear more from him in the coming days and at the rally on Saturday at the State House. But the idea here is that those who want to stand up against the Trump administration, or who want to push back on policies that they consider to be anti-democratic, have to do so by mobilizing and showing up. And that means through local actions like this, through small d democracy like this.
Now, Wesley, I know you guys got started early this morning. Tell me what's on the agenda for today.
Of course. Well, we've made it about 5-6 miles so far, and then we've got another stop, maybe 5-6 miles from here. And ultimately, we're going to end up going a full 50 miles across North Carolina. And so a lot of marching, a little singing. Hopefully, we'll grab some snacks and some water at some point. But what we're seeing here, as is the case with any march, right? People are stopping, they're honking, they're waving, they're seeing folks, and it is allowing for kind of a mobilization and a community building.
Wesley Lowery, we want to thank you so much for joining us today on The Breakdown. I know that you're getting prepared for later on today so that you can also report for Roland Martin Unfiltered. I just want to say that show starts at 6 o'clock Eastern and lasts until 8. And so we look forward to your coverage. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Well, coming up, the Center for Black Health and Equity is working to change how Black people look at healthcare by offering services that aim to achieve optimum health. We'll talk about it coming up after the break, and your support is absolutely critical to the work that we do here on the Black Star Network. Please support us via Cash App using the Stripe code. We'll put that in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also help us with credit cards. PayPal's are Martin Unfiltered. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle at RolandSMartin.com. Rolling at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you're old school, cool. Please send your checks and money orders payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196 in Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Our goal is to raise $1 million by December 31st, and we would love to say that we have your support. Stay with us. You're watching The Breakdown. We'll be right back.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. and we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
Well, the Center for Black Health and Equity in North Carolina is a national nonprofit organization that facilitates public health programs and services that benefit Black people and African American communities. Well, in addition, the center equips communities to end health disparities through funding, capacity building, and community mobilization training and technical support. Del Monte Jefferson, the Center for Black Health and Equity Director, joins us now on the breakdown. Thank you for being with us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. When you look at the most recent data, what does it tell us about the current state of Black health right now?
The current state of Black health. Well, the current state of Black health is like Black health has always been in this country. It is a disgrace. We got to understand, we got to remember, of course, that this country, and it was founded on systemic racism. The founding fathers of this country owned slaves. And so therefore they did not care about the health of Black people then, and they don't care about the health of Black people now. So everything that we're doing, we're trying to help Black people to care for themselves, since the system is not designed to care for their health. The system actually is working as it was intended to work, to keep Black health and Black disparities high. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to address that by doing this ourselves, by taking care of our own communities, by looking after our own needs ourselves.
Tell us about some of the work that you're doing.
Well, one of the biggest things that we do is we actually give grants to communities of color, and other marginalized communities as well. They don't just have to be Black, they can be brown, whatever. But other marginalized communities, we give them grants. We give them nice size grants. I'm talking $250,000 to $400,000. And we train them on something we call Pathways to Health Justice. And this teaches our communities, these communities, how to advocate for themselves. Now, when we give them these grants, we ask them to go out and find coalitions, to build coalitions, to train those coalitions, to be able to speak publicly in front of decision makers and advocate for policies that's going to benefit them. Some of those policies might deal with tobacco and menthol regulations. Some of them might deal with food and nutrition. Some of them might deal with HIV. And so, but we're trying to train these communities to advocate for themselves, and we're giving them grants to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Tell us about some of these diseases that you're noticing that are certainly having an impact on Black communities.
Well, any disease you can think of has an impact on Black communities. Of course, chronic diseases is widespread. We started out as the National African American Tobacco Prevention Network because tobacco use was devastating Black communities. It's very interesting that African Americans did not smoke at higher rates than white Americans, but African Americans were dying of cancer and other tobacco-related diseases at rates far surpassing white Americans. And so that's very interesting how the healthcare system wasn't designed to protect African Americans who were smoking less, but dying more. If we look at food and nutrition and the food deserts that we have across the country, everywhere we look, there's a food desert someplace, and how it's impacting the health of African Americans. Well, we're in North Carolina, we're working on a School Meals for All program, trying to get school meals for any student that's there, to make sure that they have the hunger needs satisfied so that they can learn.
Talk about this. We're being misdiagnosed at a higher rate than white individuals.
Yeah, again, access to healthcare and quality healthcare really impacts our communities. And again, like I said before, racism is big in this country. It's extremely big. If our founding fathers, they had slaves, and so they did not care about the health of these communities that they were trying to serve. And so right now we're going through the same thing. We're misdiagnosing African Americans with different diseases because, again, the level of care and sincerity is not there that we would expect and that we would see in other populations. I had a physician to see me just a couple of weeks ago, and the physician did not want to touch me. And so I immediately pulled away and I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to come back and I'm going to get me another doctor, somebody who doesn't mind touching me so that he can give me an accurate diagnosis.
Wow. Your research also connects food insecurity to mental health. Tell us about the lack of stable access to food and the impact that it can have on our mental health.
Well, we actually fund a group in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee, the Black Mental Health Village. We're actually giving them a grant so that they can work on that whole feature of mental health and how it impacts not just food, but how tobacco use impacts mental health and how tobacco use might impact some of the other chronic diseases, some of the diseases we might have. And so, yes, mental health impacts your food access and your food security and your food insecurity that you might have and you might experience.
Now, tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing with policy work. I mean, you're tackling structural racism, and what kind of resources are you putting into disempowering and devaluing members of the franchise and underrepresented populations?
Well, there's three things that we can do. We can build community capacity. We can make sure that our communities are able to advocate for themselves. That's number one, first and foremost. We keep telling the truth. And on our website, centerforblackhealth.org, we've got resources such as the history of tobacco in America that we developed. We didn't wait for somebody else to develop this history about us and our history in tobacco. We developed it ourselves. And so it talks about slavery. It talks about how African Americans picked the cotton and picked tobacco at one point in time, and then were hooked on tobacco at a later time. So we talk about that in our history of tobacco control, but we tell the truth about it. And then the third thing that you can do, of course, is invest in those communities. And that's how come we're putting out these grants to these communities. We're giving them resources. We're helping to build their infrastructure so that they can also start to increase and get other grants, not just the grants that we're giving them, but they're able to go out and apply and get additional funds as well. So some of these groups have never had grants. Like I said, $250,000 to $400,000. They've never had them before. And so we have to teach them how to manage those resources, be fiscally responsible and accountable so that they can get in more resources.
I want you to tell me, what do you have to say to the people who may be afraid to get the necessary care that they need for their health?
Well, again, when I talked about racism earlier, what I said was, this country is going to always be racist. If you lived out in California and you lived on a fault line someplace, you know that there's going to be earthquakes. And so you can't wish and hope and pray that the earthquakes go away. What you have to do is you have to prepare yourself on how to mitigate and how to cope and how to slowly deal with those earthquakes that are going to happen. And so with an African American, who might need health care for whatever reason, but they're living in a racist environment, what you have to do is find out how you can mitigate that best for yourselves and for your communities and for the ones that you love.
Delmonte Jefferson from the Centers for Black Health, thank you so much for joining us here on The Breakdown. We appreciate you. All right, stay with us. We will have more coming up after the break. You're watching The Breakdown.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
That's going to do it for us today on The Breakdown. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Please be sure to keep the conversation going online. We certainly want to hear from you, so please send us your questions, your story ideas. Let us know what's happening in your community. And do not forget, we'll be right back here tomorrow with more news, more context, more voices that matter. For more news, special coverage, and on-demand content, visit theblackstarnetwork.com. Check out everything happening across the Black Star Network. I'm Brittany Noble, the host of The Breakdown. You can follow me online at the Noble